because it's protect your peace and be able to manage conflict. Protect your peace and be able to have some conflict resolution skills. And so I believe that those who are emotionally confident have the ability to do the both and. Yo, what's going on, team? Welcome back to Practice, the podcast where we fuse research and culture to help you develop the mindset, habits, and skills you need in order to live out your purpose with confidence. I'm your host, Coach Rees, and it's time to get better. Let's grow.
We talking about practice, not a game. We talking about practice.
Practices are meant to be competitive. They're meant to be competitive. If your practices aren't more competitive than the games themselves, you're doing the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm. Yo, I am super excited for this episode. And if you listen to any of the previous episodes, you're probably like, Coach Rees, you're always excited, which is true. And I love it, which is why I keep coming back. And I hope that's why you keep coming back. So today we're talking about emotional confidence. And the reason why I'm so excited about this is because I started my doctoral journey because of emotional intelligence and wanting to figure out how do we leverage emotional intelligence and leadership to help people to grow. Like that was really at the root of why I was like, yo, I want to learn more about emotional intelligence and leadership and how I can help people identify this concept to help their followers. And so after about a 4-year journey, I created the term emotional confidence. And the reason why I call it emotional confidence versus emotional intelligence is as I've continued to do my research, I've learned there's a lot of harm, I would say, that's been done around intelligence and ability and competency and when I say harm, I mean a lot of times for Black and brown folks, like those terms weren't used to describe us or with us in mind. And so the other reason is when I think about everything that I do, if you know me, you know it's confidence or bust. And so I came up with the framework through all of my research that led me to saying, I want to help people develop emotional confidence. Because a lot of times when we hear, I think, intelligence, there's it's kind of like IQ, EQ is how people think about it. And so if you're not really understanding the growth and the brain and the development of your mind and how you can utilize it, it could put some people, kind of pigeonhole them or put them in a box and not really knowing how you really grow and develop this. And so I was like, yo, emotional confidence. So emotional confidence is, in short, your ability to manage your emotions confidently, manage yourself and manage others well. That's the shortest way I'm going to say it for right now, because we're going to dive further into this. But emotional confidence is your ability to be confident about how you manage you and how you can manage others when your emotions rise. Okay, so yes, the root of it is emotional intelligence and understanding that. But then for me, there's so much more to it. And I'd much rather know that I have confidence in being able to not only manage, but know my emotions and also be able to pick up on the emotions of others. And that's what this is about. And so as we go on, I'm going to break it down. Before we continue, we got to get into the quote of the episode. So today's quote comes from Kyer Gaines, who is a psychologist, a counselor, therapist. And if you don't follow him on IG, here's his information. Make sure you follow him on IG. But he said, there is nothing wrong with being emotional. That's an asset. The trouble comes is when your big emotions are poorly regulated. And in reading this quote, I'm like, that's it. Again, if you're thinking about the traditional emotional intelligence, and I'll break that down real quick, there's 4 aspects to it. You've got self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Management essentially means regulation, right? So the self-awareness piece is really key, because if I'm not aware, and I say this all the time, it doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what you're aware of if you can't regulate it, but you have to be aware first, right? So there's awareness, then the regulation, then that's myself. Then for other people, there's the awareness and then the management, again, that regulation piece. But for emotional confidence, I want to take it just a couple steps deeper to really help us like hone in and get that full holistic growth, because that's what we're about here at YOU-ISH, is holistic personal development from top to bottom. But before we go further, y'all know we got to get to what is the song of the episode. So I couldn't pick a song. So we got 3 songs rocking out with us today. One I just think is really funny because it comes from LMA and it's called Emotions. And it's the first song on her self-titled album, LMA. And this album is funny and I'm giggling because people hated that she talked on her albums, and hated that she did poetry, and I liked it. My brain remembers, right, in music as a lot of ours does. And right when I heard I was like emotions, I was like emotions. So if you've ever heard her album, you got to check it out because one, she's great, she's phenomenal, but I love when she talks because she's got an accent and it's fire. Who doesn't love an English accent on a black woman? Bomb. Anyways, so LMA starts off her album with emotions. And she goes in and tells us what emotions are. And so, but if you listen to the rest of the album, you're like, whoa, this chick is really diving into her emotions. So we're rocking with that. Then I was like, man, you got Drake Emotionless. And that song is pretty fire too. And I love how he talks about the different emotions that people experience, but in how they experience them. And one of my favorite is he talks about this chick who goes to Rome, or people who want to travel, and how people are doing all these different things to make it look like they're doing something that they're not really doing. So we might have to bring this song in for another episode, another day, but make sure you check out Emotionless by Drake. And then our last song is a throw all the way back to Destiny's Child, and it is called Emotions. And what the hook really is, emotional roller coaster. That's what Beyonce in their saying is it's an emotional roller coaster. You got me on it. And I think it's funny how these 3 songs, and I didn't really think about this till right now, only kind of highlight the emotional wave and vibe and roller coaster kind of sadness and all these things. But I don't want to paint the picture that emotions are just that piece, because emotions are also things that let's go, right? Help us navigate joy, I guess, which is a feeling. I probably should talk about that in this episode, but I'll leave that for another episode. But the difference between feelings and emotions, right? Where they're not necessarily the same thing. But you know what? I'm gonna talk about it anyways. But you just gotta give me a second before I get there. So emotions, right? Emotions just aren't a woman thing. Emotions just aren't a thing that you experience when you are upset or you're angry or whatever, right? Emotions are who we are. So this leads me into our research for the episode. So from a research stance, we are talking about neuroscience. Now you might be saying, Coach Rees, why are we talking about neuroscience if we're talking about emotions? Well, because we can't talk about emotions without talking about our brain, because this is where they first start, is in our brain. Okay, so we're about to get after it. I'm excited. If you're ready to get better, make sure you got your pen, your paper, your notepad, whatever it is that you need to do, because it's about to go down. Now let's head into story time. All right, y'all, story time for today. We are focusing on Shannon Sharpe. And I actually am a huge fan of this scenario because it's the scenario at large, the story at large that I appreciate. So a couple weeks ago, Shannon Sharpe was watching the Lakers versus Memphis Grizzlies, and him and one of the players on the Grizzlies got into an altercation. He was like, bruh, you're too small to guard LeBron, whoop whoop. And then oh boy obviously got upset, emotions, boom, barks back. Shannon's like, boy, you don't want to see me? I don't, pretty much what he said in other words, right? So then the situation escalates, right? It gets super big. Obviously you can YouTube, go on IG, see all of it, but it escalates from what it was to, Shannon having to be escorted out. He comes back. You got Ja Morant's dad comes over, Ja comes over, everybody security, whoa, it turns into a big old ordeal. And but my point isn't necessarily that, but you can see and say that emotions got large, emotions got big, it heated the scenario. But fast forward, Shannon Sharpe goes on his IG and he does something that I think is so brilliant. Not brilliant from a intellectual stance, but I think confident, should I say. He displays his emotional confidence in a way that I think is really the mission here. And he takes full responsibility and accountability. Full responsibility and accountability for his actions and for what they ended up doing. And how he did this, though, was he ended up asking for forgiveness and apologizing. And that's huge. So the reason why I wanted to use this story as an example to help us understand what emotional confidence is because you are going to stumble. You are going to mess up. In your journey of any type of confidence, especially emotional confidence, you're going to have to apologize. You're going to have to own up. You're going to have to take accountability and be like, But the fact that you have the ability to take responsibility, the ability to take accountability, to own up, that right there is your ability to show and display that you are emotionally confident. Because not everybody has the ability to say, you know what? That's on me. And own it in front of millions of people. Like, that's a big deal. So I want us to keep that at the forefront. And so as I was doing some more research, I saw that Shannon had T.I. on his podcast, and they were talking about the scenario, and it was this part right here that I've always said this, and I love it. Shannon was like, a lot of people will say, oh no, that wasn't me, and he was like, that was me. I was like, ugh. Now, I'm not a huge proponent of his overall thought process in other ways, but the way that he's displaying himself on this, he got my respect. Because he was like, no, that was me. And I just was out of character. And that is the root, y'all, is you have to know yourself. You have to be able to say, that was me. I did that. I messed up. I just was out of character. My emotions got to a place and I wasn't able to regulate them. But I can apologize, though. And I can move forward. I can ask for forgiveness. I can receive forgiveness. And I can apologize to the people that need it and not to those who don't. And just keep it pushing. So thank you, Shannon Sharpe, for displaying that for us, for black men, for black people, for the athletic community, for egos, for pride, for all the above. Because I think it is super necessary. All right, y'all. So now let's get back to like this brain game. Why neuroscience? What does that have to do with what we're talking about? What does our brain have to do with our emotions? And it is very, very important for you to understand this because this is at the literally, I would say the root, but it's kind of on the top. But it's still the root of why we do what we do. And so we've got 3 different levels pretty much to our brain. This is the shortest way to explain this. You've got your like reptilian brain, which is at the very bottom, right? That's like the tip. This is like stage 1 of the brain. That controls your like nervous system, your stress, if you start to sweat, goosebumps, how you feel, your heart rate, all those different things stems from that part of your brain. The next piece you have is your limbic. And this is where your emotions sit. Your emotions and your feelings sit in that second layer of your brain. The third layer of your brain is your cortex, right up here at the top. And that focuses on your rationale, your thinking, your memory, all those different things. So the easiest way to explain a complex thing such as our brain is in that 3-stage way, okay? And the reason why this matters is because obviously the limbic stage of our brain is where our emotions and our feelings are. And then you have your regulation, right, which comes in that third layer. And the dopest thing is our brain talks to each other. So you can think of, and people describe emotional intelligence as the conversation between your limbic brain and your cortex. Right? The emotions and feelings and your reasoning, your regulation, your reflection, your action, all of that, and then how your body feels. So that's the short and sweet of our brain and why our brain matters. Here's the dopest part about our brain though, is that there's something called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity, which basically means our brain is malleable. It's like plastic. You can move it, right? It's not like glass, which is like if you break glass, it breaks a million pieces. But our brain is malleable, which means you can learn. Like you can learn. Like emotional intelligence isn't something that's just given, that you're just born with and you can't develop it. Neuroplasticity says you can develop new ways of thinking. You can, maybe not necessarily ways of like feeling, because your emotions will rise, but you can develop the confidence to be able to manage what you've become aware of. What I mean is your brain and your ability to get in reps in the right direction is going to develop your emotional confidence. So your ability to get in the reps in the right direction is going to develop your emotional confidence. Whew. Okay. So last piece about the brain here. You've got your brain, then you've got your mind, then you've got your emotions and your feelings, then your thoughts, and then your behavior. So the reason why it's so, again, important to just kind of know a foundational level of how our brain works is because it goes from your brain to your mind, then your emotions and your feelings, and then we have thoughts about something, and then we act. Our action is where we need to have the confidence that we're going to be able to respond in a way that aligns with our best self. So the more you know yourself, the more you will be confident in knowing you will respond in a way that aligns with your best self. So now I want to break down the aspects of emotional confidence and what this looks like in action. So emotional confidence, in my description, again, this is my philosophy, it has two parts similar to emotional intelligence, but I like to call them intrapersonal and interpersonal. Intrapersonal and interpersonal. Intrapersonal is me, myself, I. How am I dealing with me? So we start with humility. Humility, again, is a heart posture. It's not a destination. It's a heart posture that says, in order for me to grow and be emotionally confident, I have to position my heart in a specific way that says, I don't know all I need to know. I do know what I do know. I'm willing to know more, and I'm willing to wrestle with whatever that is, okay? Humility first is the heart posture that leads us now into step 2, which is self-awareness. Okay, you being aware of self, being able to have that self-reflection, understanding who you are, why you are, all of that obviously matters, right? You have to be able to go through that journey, the cycle between humility and self-awareness, that cycle of wrestling and coming to an understanding, okay? The next piece is authenticity. I believe that in order for you to be emotionally confident, you have to be authentically you. If you're not authentically you, you're not going to be able to manage what you're aware of, because you won't know if these emotions are in line with your best self if you're not being your best self, right? So our authenticity is your truth in action. And the reason why I want to point back out to Shannon's story is he said something, right? Like, that was me. So even when we mess up, that was me. That is me being authentic. It was just a me that I don't care to be. There's a difference. It's not like that's him all the time. Because clearly he wouldn't be who he is and have his, the job and be the professional that he is. But maybe that was more so him when he was younger. Maybe that was him when he was playing football, all the above. But it's not the him that he is today. And so this is why authenticity is so important, because you have to take ownership over who you are, ownership over your emotions, ownership over what you've become aware of. And this is where humility is. Humility allows you to take ownership over who you are, over what you've become aware of in your self-awareness process, okay? The next piece is self-leadership. My ability to now lead me. I gotta lead me. Leadership is a part of management, but leadership is also a relationship with self. Okay, leadership is the ability to display. Leadership is be the model. I have to model to myself and prove to myself that I can. So the first layer of emotional confidence is intrapersonal. Okay, the intimate relationship with myself, my ability to be humble, self-aware, authentic, and lead myself. Okay, the next piece, we got interpersonal. That's others. That's my village. That's my community. That's my confidants. Those are the people that I do life with, all the above. Okay. interpersonal, or people that I just encounter. That now becomes between intra to me. Now I have to take everything that was in me and be able to display that outwardly. So interpersonal, again, is going to start with humility. The reason why this starts with humility is because we need humility in order to have healthy dialogue and relationships and connections with other people. Period. Without humility, we will not be able to connect with others in a way that's transformational. We won't be able to connect with others in a way that allows us to be empathetic. We won't be able to connect with others in a way that allows us to grow in any kind of relationship, especially through conflict, right? So in our interpersonal space, emotional confidence means I have the ability to remain humble in my relational pursuits. Next, we have assessment. An assessment is I got to be able to pick up on the game. I got to be able to assess the energy in the space that I'm in. I got to be able to assess your energy, right? And my humility is going to empower me to assess your energy. So when I assess your energy, the energy of the space in the room, I know how I need to show up. I'm still going to be my authentic self, but I know how I need to show up in this space. I know how I need to show up in this conversation. When you think about assessment, I also want you to think about two things: communication and boundaries. The reason why communication and boundaries are here is because when I peep game on what's going on, that's going to tell me what boundaries I may need to input, and it's going to tell me how I need to communicate those boundaries to you also. Okay. The third piece is accountability. Again, this is why I love Shannon's display of accountability in his emotional confidence, because I have to take accountability for my actions. So whether I show up in a way that is healthy, is toxic, is beneficial, is constructive, destructive, whatever, I got to take accountability for that. So this is where people like to say, well, I can't make you feel no way. No, boo-boo. Yes, you can. Because your actions might trigger a reaction or something in me that makes me feel some type of way. But I have to take accountability for how I showed up. But then on the other end, if I'm the receiver, I have to take accountability for how I responded and how I'm going to move forward post that. Because if it lands, it lands. Intent versus impact is, those are two different things. But if you did something and it lands a specific way, I got to take responsibility and accountability for how I respond to how I was impacted by what you said and how I responded. And if I responded in a way that is in alignment with who I desire to be, or if I got out of character, like Shannon talked about, boom, I didn't respond. I got out of character, but he took accountability, right? So you have to take accountability on both sides. That's the biggest piece here. And the last piece is a 3-piece: pivot, retreat, or timeout. When the interpersonal aspect of emotional confidence comes into play and I'm connecting with somebody, I need to know, is this a situation where I need to pivot? Is this a situation where I need to retreat? Or do I need a timeout? So for all our hoopers, all that stuff makes sense. But if you're not a hooper, you're probably like, Coach Rees, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay. Pivot. If I get in a situation in basketball and I have to, I'm going to say jump stop because that's the best situation, the best thing to say. I now have to decide between which foot I'm going to use in order to help me get out of this difficult situation. I got to pivot. I got to figure out, how do I get out of here? Right? The next piece is, do I need to retreat? Retreat may be, I went too deep into a conversation. It's gotten out of hand. We're going somewhere I don't want to go. So now I need to use a retreat dribble to back up, to reassess, right? This is going backwards. I got to reassess what the heck's going on. Did I read the energy wrong? You impacted me this way. I got to retreat so that I can reassess the scenario and the energy to make sure that I can continue in the way that I need to. Do I need to stay in this? The other piece is, do I need a timeout? Because I might just need to, I just call it, I need a timeout. I need a timeout. Okay, I might just need a timeout. And when you take a timeout, this is actually a really wise thing for you to do, because you might get into a situation where you have to pivot. The pivot don't work. And now you're like, timeout. So that way you can collect yourself. And again, this is all about the self-awareness. Right now, I cannot continue to manage or handle or be in this situation and respond in a way that is authentic to me, or respond in a way that aligns with who it is that I want to be. Whew. So I hope all of that made sense, because it's a growing philosophy, it's a growing thought process, but it's something that I think is going to be beneficial to help us take our understanding of emotional intelligence to the next level of how we can embed our holistic personal development within it. But here are 4 things that I think that you need in order to grow in your emotional confidence. Number 1, you need psychological safety, intrapersonally and interpersonally, right? I need psychological safety to know that it is safe enough for me to be who I need to be and express my emotions and not feel shame and put down and all those other different things, right? From myself and from other people. And I'm going to get grace. I'm going to get forgiveness, all of that. The next piece is you need communication skills. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but you need to be able to communicate, right? This is what helps you mature. This is what helps you become emotionally mature, is because you can communicate how you're feeling. This is why babies just cry. And little kids, they act out because they can't articulate how I'm feeling. They have the same feelings as us: hungry, tired, sleepy, all those things. They pee themselves, whatever, right? Like, I'm angry and frustrated, help. But for them, it comes out in a way where you're like, But the whole point is that for adults, we should be able to articulate and communicate how we are feeling. Those who aren't able to do that are not emotionally mature. They're not emotionally confident. They have very low emotional intelligence. However you want to say it, that just is what it is, right? And then the third thing is boundaries. Once you become aware of certain things and you've been in a scenario with somebody multiple times or one time, that gives you the, okay, bet. Yep, I know exactly how I need to move or what boundaries I need to put around me, so that way my brain and my nervous system don't go popping off, right, in the future. And the fourth thing is patience. You need patience with yourself. You need patience with other people, period. Whew. All right, y'all. So I know that was a lot, and it was a lot fast. Reason being is because I'm trying to keep these podcasts short and sweet, to where I'm not over inundating you. But please do know we will definitely be breaking down all of these in the future. So you got to make sure you like and subscribe and stay along with what was going on, so you can stay tapped in to help you grow in your emotional confidence. But now we are at the skills and drills, and it's time to grow, y'all. So here's your practical application. I got 3 things for you. Number 1, you got to get in tune with your system. You have to, right? That's understanding, how does my body respond in certain scenarios? How does it respond? Because your body response, remember, is that reptilian part of your brain. That is your, do I get goosebumps? Am I sweating? Is my heart starting to pound? Like, when I think about a situation, what happens to me? Another concept of this is the body keeps a score, where your body holds on to trauma, right? Based off of that scenario. So you got to get in tune with your system. What thoughts do I think that now make my body go, right? And then you could also reverse it in the other direction. You think about something that is less stressful, right? You meditate on something that's less stressful, and then it helps calm your body down. Number 2, gain momentum in one area for at least 2 weeks. Okay, gain momentum at one area. Focus on what you're saying. Okay, I want to be able to grow in this aspect. And you just try to find, how do I gain momentum in that piece? Because once you gain momentum in that piece and you focus on it for a couple weeks, that's going to give you the strength to show, like, okay, I could do this. And now you can build up, and now you can start applying this to maybe other relationships. Now you start applying it with maybe teachers. So you want to start in like low risk environments, maybe with the friend that's already safe, right? Whether that's inserting boundaries or starting to communicate. But you want to start off with one skill, one thing, one area, and try to focus on doing that thing for 2 weeks, and then build up and start having more difficult conversations as you build up the strength. Number 3, track your growth over a 3-month period. I believe that anybody can change almost any area of their life in a matter of 3 months. And so if you now get in tune with your system, and then you start small with one area for 2 to 3 weeks, I believe that you'll be able within 3 months to fully train your communication, fully train your boundaries, and at least gain some momentum that says, okay, like I'm not afraid to do this anymore. I'm not afraid to speak up for myself. I'm not afraid to insert my boundaries and tell somebody when they violated them or let them know what they are. I'm not afraid to do what I need to do to protect my peace, right? Because on the other side of fear is that emotional confidence. And so you have to do what you got to do on a daily basis in order to grow in these areas, because it's protect your peace and be able to manage conflict. Protect your peace and be able to have some conflict resolution skills. And so I believe that those who are emotionally confident have the ability to do the both and. All right, y'all. So I hope that you got something from this. I hope that you valued the conversation. You felt like that you got better today. This was very high level, broad, but it's the direction that we're going, because I want you to not only live out your purpose with confidence, but to be able to have emotional confidence, because that's what's going to enable you to not only be your best self, but also show up as your best self. And even when you fall short, it allows you to take accountability and then proceed. I love y'all. I'm praying for y'all. I hope the best for y'all. This is it. Practice the podcast from your favorite confidence coach, Coach Rees. Until next time, peace.